Correspondent, also the Trump Whisperer. Good morning, Alex Castellanos.
Good morning, McGraw.
What's going on at the White House? You've got Jared Kushner under fire. People are leaking all over the place. He loses his security clearance. You got Hope Hicks leaving. You have Donald Trump going after Jeff Sessions, calling him Mr. Magoo. What is going on in Trump's White House?
Another slow day in the White House. A typical Trump, and this is why Hope Hicks is leaving. Yes, she testified before the Intelligence Committee, and that has nothing to do with her leaving. Apparently, she'd planned this a while back. It's not one thing, it's everything. Hope Hicks was the javelin catcher, catching all the incoming flack that Donald Trump creates, and he's worn her out. He's worn everybody out. The first wave that hit the beaches, Bannon, Priebus, Walsh, Scaramucci, everybody, they're all gone. They can't keep up with this president. This White House is defeated, feels demoralized. And what does that mean? Donald Trump, usually you bring in the second wave, right, the pros? Well, Donald Trump doesn't have a second wave. There are not a lot of people who want to go work in that environment. So this president is increasingly isolated and angry and alone.
It doesn't seem to be getting any better, too, right? I mean, as you said, there aren't a lot of people coming in as reinforcements, and he's losing them by the day. Probably going to lose Jared Kushner. If not soon, he's at least marginalized Jared Kushner.
Well, now there's a war between Jared and Ivanka and John Kelly, his chief of staff. And usually, if you make a man choose between his children and an employee, guess who's going to win? That's not good. Kelly's been one of these stabilizing forces. Believe it or not, this is calmer than it could have been.
Well, with all of that going on, then something we all thought would never happen, and that is a president actually vocalizing the idea of taking people's guns without due process. Listen to this from yesterday.
Take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system. Because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
Alex, what is going on?
Well, this is Donald Trump, the political initiate, the guy who does not know the history of the gun battles in this country, who doesn't understand what he's saying without due process. You know, if you sentence people without and then have a trial later, you know, hang them first and have the trial afterwards, that's kind of the very violation of the rule of law on which America's founded. So that was a jaw-dropping moment. But here's the thing about Trump. Trump never goes in a straight line. He bounces off every guardrail. He goes left, then he goes right, then he goes left, he goes right. He'll end up somewhere in the middle, but this is going to scare his base, because the most powerful part of his base element may be his NRA support.
Could you imagine if President Obama said something like that after Newtown?
The NRA literally would be up in arms, but it's much beyond that. This is not just about guns. This is the rule of law. You're saying what? We're going to, in effect, sentence you before there's a trial, before you get due process. That means the police, the armed forces, can do anything they want before you're even charged.
I mean,
it's a scary moment.
There's a lot of constitutionalists, originalists. The Republican Party prides themselves on being the party of the Constitution. And their guy said, take the guns and then give them due process. That goes that's the ball game. That goes against everything they've ever stood for.
You just erase the Constitution. But you know, the effect it's going to have, McGraw, is the opposite of what I think Trump intended. This is going to scare. You've even got liberals on television today saying, this is scary. We can't have this. So this is actually going to unite everyone and may protect the Second Amendment and our other rights, because Trump has gone so far.
Does he have to walk it back? Does he have to make a statement? Does he have to pull that back?
He's already begun to this morning, tweeting out, I love the Second Amendment. So he's beginning to walk that back. You're going to see him bounce off the guardrails. Typical Trump.
Alex Castellanos, they don't pay you enough to read the tea leaves. Thanks, Alex. Have a good day.
With you.